What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Lab podcast. My name's Kimon. I'm the head of videography at the Lab, and
Hey, my name is Kyle, and I'm part of the videography team.
sweet. So we thought today we'd chat a little bit about the skills you need as a creative, the stuff you need behind the scenes, outside of the hard skills of knowing how to paint, of knowing how to edit, some of the things that would help you to build a career and actually take it from a bedroom hobby to something that you can make a living out of. Some of the things that we decided to discuss, or some of the things that we feel are really important, we'll just have a bit of a chat about. And I think one of the first things is creativity and imagination, like making sure we think out of the box as much as possible. I know we work in a very corporate space. It's kind of different to working for a team that creates things.
Like music videos.
Yeah, like music videos, or someone that runs a YouTube channel or something. So sometimes maybe it can get a little bit difficult for us to be creative and imaginative in the work that we do. So what are some of the ways that you try to combat that?
Well, I mean, there are spaces where you can still be creative in the corporate industry, because obviously clients have a certain idea that they want to try and execute.
Yeah.
You can try and implement your take on it, but still applying their niche and their views to something.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's actually almost more difficult to do our job because we're trying to be creative and have our own personal touch and spin on it. And I think as creatives, a lot of the time we care so much about the work that we create, but the client wants it like a specific way. So we try and like impart our personality into the work while still sticking to their guidelines.
And we all think that it's amazing, but then they'll think it's like so average.
Yeah, exactly.
We can spend probably maybe 5 hours on this specific goal that we have in mind, or maybe like masking or editing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the client will look at it and, be fazed about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say that would, one of the things that I wanted to mention would fall more into our second point, which is problem solving. And I think a lot of the time problem solving can be super creative as well. So I know for me, at least, a lot of my creativity comes out in the problem solving when working for clients, not necessarily in the actual work we do. So maybe we can't get as creative as we want with the colors and the way we do things. But when it comes to the challenges that clients throw at us, when they don't give us proper briefs, when they don't give us, the right context for the stuff we do, that's when creativity sort of comes out for me,
Sure. That's a good point, bro. I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. So.
Yeah, so if we move on to problem solving as a skill, what are some of the toughest things that you can remember in recent history where you're like, flip, I don't think the shoot's going to work out, or I don't think I'm going to be able to get this deadline done, and maybe a way that you got around that to sort of solve that problem?
Okay, well, this is not related to any corporate gig that we've ever done. The problem solving that I think probably the biggest hurdle that I've ever had to like overcome was we did like a wedding maybe like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're busy shooting, but now it's the speeches. So speeches are probably like the most important part of the wedding. Obviously, I mean, everyone cherishes the moment, and you can't just tell them to redo it. So what happened is one of our cameras actually died.
Yeah.
And we had no battery. Literally, we ran out of batteries, and it was our first wedding ever. So you don't know what to expect,
Yeah,
and we're kind of just going with the flow. You can look at YouTube videos, but when you're actually in the spot, it's very different.
Yeah.
So we're shooting this thing, and then all of a sudden, throughout the half of the speech, it just gets cancelled. Like the camera just switches off. So the next best thing is, obviously now you got to be on your toes as well. So you got to think fast. So just whip out our phone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not going to be the best quality, but at least
it's captured. Yeah.
There's still that memory that you're still able to capture for those people on the day.
Yeah.
That's something that I had to come up with.
Yeah, like thinking fast on your feet is really something essential as a creative, especially if you're working out in the field. Like, I suppose if you are like a painter or a muralist, like maybe you get commissioned to do some wall art or something like that, it's maybe not as hectic. But doing the kind of work that we do, especially shooting something like a wedding, your problem-solving skills need to be super, super on point. I know just on the corporate side of things, the amount of times where we've wanted to do something or like had an idea for a style of shot that we want to get, and we don't necessarily have the right equipment, and we taking things that aren't meant to be used the way that we are and like using them in funny ways.
Yeah.
Like duct taping,
That's actually quite
boards to bounce light in certain ways, and
on the ceiling to maybe like cover the lights.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, duct taping microphones to tripods to use them as like boom arms and things like that,
You have to be creative. I mean, because especially if you're starting out, you don't have the money that to
exactly
these big corporates do. So you got to literally make do with what you've got in your
exactly yeah. And at the end of the day, if you have a microphone attached to the end of a tripod that you're holding up, it's gonna sound the same as a professional boom arm. Like no one can really hear the difference between those.
Not going to see the behind the scenes either. So.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, problem solving and creativity, I think they go hand in hand, but they are really, really incredible skills. I would say a few ways that I could just mention on how I increase my creativity or sort of grow that skill and flex that muscle is definitely having conversations with other creative people and thinking of new ways, thinking of new ways to sort of discuss ideas with people that have different perspectives to you, to sort of grow your perspective on things.
Because then your itinerary for your creative space will be a lot wider.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome.
And also just exploring topics of, subjects, could be movies, music, reading books of things that you never thought you'd be interested in, and seeing what new lessons you can learn from that and applying it to the stuff that you are interested in. So if you're really into metal or rock, yeah, like if you're really into metal or rock and, let's say you're a lead guitarist for a rock band or something, it would probably be super beneficial to your craft if you listen to a ton of hip hop music or a ton of classical music or even electronic music, because you can bring that inspiration back into your work,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Also, just also looking at other people, like other creatives, like you're saying, just elaborate on that.
Yeah.
If you're looking at other creators, you can kind of see their direction, where they're going, and you can see the popular trends that are occurring as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you can also maybe put your own twist to it. It doesn't always have to be copy paste.
Yeah.
You have your own thoughts and your own creativity, so that makes it unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the third point that we thought was also extremely valuable, and I think this stands out even more when you are working solo as a freelancer, is having really fine-tuned communication skills, being able to talk to the people that you're working with, your clients. And this really shines through a lot when you stuff something up, when you make a mistake or you are missing a deadline, or maybe you shot something, like for instance, you guys with that wedding story that you said, you needed to have some pretty strong communication skills and a lot of confidence to go to them afterwards and be like, hey, listen, one of our cameras stuffed up, but don't worry, we caught the speech on camera, it's still going to look great, or maybe you guys didn't communicate that directly afterwards, and afterwards when you delivered the final video, you had to sort of say to them, this is why it looks like that, and tell them that, mistakes happen and we did the best we can. Hopefully we saved the day.
Sure. So you also don't want to lie to your customers or to...
Exactly.
Because you don't want to ever do that, because obviously your relationship with them would deteriorate a lot.
Yeah.
So you got to be open-minded, open-sourced.
Yeah.
Put all your cards on the table and let...
100%. How did that story actually turn out? Like...
So look, they weren't too chuffed in the beginning, because obviously when we have our camera on, we have the audio mic connected to the camera and all that, so you get that crispy sound.
Yeah.
But, now that you're recording off a phone, it's not going to be as crispy, and even the quality of the camera itself won't be as great. So what we did is we had to move a little bit closer to the speaker, and we could still hear it, so we had to go through, but now there's another problem that we had to overcome. So now maybe there's a little bit too much noise, because now obviously the phone captures everything. It doesn't just capture just mono sound.
Yeah.
So now we have to go into like software development, looking up like audio, like what's crispy.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that it wasn't recent because of all the crazy AI isolation.
I wish it was like yesterday.
It's like run it through Adobe Podcast Enhance and it sounds incredible. It's unfortunate, but that's a really tough situation. Yeah.
And also, communication, you were even telling me like 2 weeks ago, we stuffed up one of the recordings for one of our corporate clients.
Yeah. And
you literally came in clutch by saying, no, dude, look at this audio AI that's come in, and you fix it and made it sound so smooth.
For sure.
So thank you for that, bro.
It's a pleasure.
I appreciate that.
Glad I could help. But yeah, communication is super, super important. Even just having the confidence to speak up when you're on set. A good example when shooting is you might have a scene playing out, and if you're lucky to be involved in a bit of a bigger production, there's probably quite a few people involved in this production. And let's say, God forbid, you're about to shoot the scene and everyone acts the scene out and you realize, oh, flip, the audio wasn't rolling, or you didn't hit play on the camera, or what's happened to me quite often is you kind of forget maybe to see how much memory is left on your card, and in the middle of a scene you run out of memory. Now you need to have the ability and the confidence to speak up and say to everyone that's on set, guys, we didn't capture that scene. Can we reset and do it again? And sometimes that's going to happen when you've done the scene like 5 or 6 times. So imagine you've like recorded the scene 4 or 5 times, and the 5th one, everyone was happy and everyone did their lines perfectly. And that's the one where you start that. It's really, really hard to speak up and say, yeah, guys, we need to do that another time. But it's such an important skill to have. So I think that's a good summary of communication. Moving on to the 4th point, which is also has some tie-ins with being able to problem solve, is adaptability, rolling with the punches. So I know in the creative industry with freelancers and just a lot of the corporate work that we do, things are constantly changing. Clients are constantly asking for the original brief and the final product are a lot of the time very different. So you need to learn how to be adaptable and how to, if you've planned 4 hours for a shoot and your main actor shows up an hour late or 2 hours late, you need to be able to shoot that in 2 hours now. You need to figure out a way to sort of get through those issues.
And you're going to get a lot of that.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, it happens even in our day-to-day like work environment.
Yeah, 100%.
But I mean, it's, if you learn to adapt fast, you become efficient. And that's exactly what you want to be.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you could be working on a script, for instance, and then maybe now you got to hop on to a video call, something like, so you got to be able to accommodate both.
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot on your plate all at once that you need to try and it into little pieces to make it all fit into the pie.
Yeah, and a lot of those sort of times where I needed to be highly adaptable and figure out these creative and interesting shortcuts on how to complete projects really quickly have helped me, like you said, become so fast in my work, where there were projects before that would take me 5 or 6 hours to edit that I can edit in less than an hour now because of all the shortcuts I was forced to find from those times where I needed to be adaptable and sort of figure out a new way of how to edit things.
I haven't seen to the photo yet, but I saw you in a car when we were going to one of our clients.
Yeah.
And literally you were sitting in the front there with your PC just editing. I mean, that's how it has to be at times.
Yeah. Right? We have to go somewhere and a video has to be done. So you have to be adaptable enough to edit in the car.
I mean, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Actually, I've seen it to you.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Yeah, and I think taking adaptability home with you is also quite important as a creative, again, especially as a freelancer, because you don't have a consistent salary. So you need to know how to live on small budgets, and you need to know that when that big money comes in, you land a big ad and you get the payout of 20, 30 grand for that month and you're balling, to not just go buy
and spend it
like pairs of shoes and,
you got all that yourself.
Having an adaptable lifestyle as well. And as creatives, I know a lot of the time we're working in the evening, sometimes late into the early mornings on weekends, especially photographers and musicians. So having that adaptability in you is super important.
Because you don't really get your full 8 hours of sleep all at once. So like you don't ever go to bed at 8 and then wake up at 5 or 6. It's either one night you're going to be going to bed at 1, like other nights you're going to 10. Sometimes you don't even sleep.
Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest challenges in my personal life being a creative is just creating a routine and sticking to it. Because once you have the routine, you follow it for 2 or 3 days, and then all of a sudden our boss is calling us. He's like, hey, we need to shoot this thing, but we need it at sunrise, so we have to be at the office at 4 a.m.
We needed it yesterday. So.
Yeah, it's really hectic. And then the last point that we wanted to discuss, which is arguably one of the most important points, is collaboration. So being a team player in the creative space is extremely, extremely important, especially in our setting at the moment. And it's a lesson that I'm still learning at the moment, and learning the value of collaboration, because for a very long time I was I was a freelancer, and then I got a job and I was the only videographer on a very small team. And only very recently have we built it out to have, you involved in all the other people that are on our team doing amazing work, and learning to let go of certain parts of the project and allowing other people to come through and shine. It's quite a skill to learn, but it's super important.
It's very important, but it's also nice to have other hands on as well, because if you collaborate and it's successful collaboration, everyone wins.
Yeah.
And that winning is awesome, because it feels like you've done teamwork, and not, like you say, not all the workload is on your chest.
Yeah.
You have it distributed, so it's nice to have that free flow.
Absolutely. Yeah, and in the freelance space, again, especially for musicians, it's also a way to gain new inspiration and to work on things that you would never otherwise have thought you might work on. You know, especially in music, it's a really important thing. I know there's an artist, John Bellion, and he's made so much music and a whole bunch of albums, and was quite high up, peaking in his career. And he said in an interview once that the rest of the projects he wants to make for at least the foreseeable future, he wants to collaborate, because eventually you almost run dry of your own internal inspiration. And,
Of course.
you know, instead of writing a song and saying, I want this kind of bass line, and hiring a guy to come and do the bass line, which is often what happens in our team, where, you know, I'll get a brief from the client or from Felix, and we want to shoot something a specific way. So we'll give it to the team and say, I want this done this way, and I want this done this way. The final product comes out great. But there's also a different kind of magic where you let the person you're collaborating with do their own thing.
The trust.
Exactly. 100%. So you have a song and you say, I want a bass line for the song. Can you write a bass line for the song? And what they write is probably very different to what you might have wanted on the song.
Had in mind, yeah.
But the final product is going to be really interesting, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think collaboration is super important. So yeah, just to recap, I think the 5 most important skills for creative in any field to know is definitely creativity and inspiration. So, you know, go out of your comfort zone and your general likes. Go find a playlist on Spotify that isn't recommended to you, and listen to some different music, and watch a movie you've never heard of. Pick something that, you know, go on Netflix or Prime tonight and look at it, the first movie that you're like, I don't want to watch that. That looks terrible. Watch that movie.
Give it a go.
Just see what happens, you know?
But if it's on Rotten Tomatoes, like less than 30%, maybe don't.
Yeah, okay, maybe not then. The next thing is problem solving. So, you know, just making sure that you're quick on your feet and you can solve issues when things arise, because there are going to be problems, especially in the creative space.
And don't be afraid to mess up. I mean, things are going to not go your way, but don't be discouraged by that. You know, yes, you mess up, but now you need to look forward. Okay, what's next? How do I put my foot to the right direction into make it a successful project?
Yeah, absolutely. Next up is communication, and that's also, as we said, super important. Another good tip on how to sort of improve your communication, as we mentioned earlier, is just to have conversations with people. And if you don't have anyone to have conversations with, just put the webcam on your camera and record yourself talking about something that you care about. You don't have to post it anywhere, you don't have to put it up, but just speak about things out loud, you know, deal with these situations.
Interesting take on that, bro. Yeah, absolutely.
Then obviously adaptability is also really important, being able to roll with the punches. And lastly, collaboration. Like, find some people to work with, even if it's small projects, even if it's just asking them some input and questions. Start learning how to work as part of a team.
And especially that are just as motivated and inspired as you, because you don't want people that are like also, you know, sloppy and all that, because then the work will become sloppy.
Yeah.
People that are also just as driven, maybe not in the right direction, but if you put them into the right direction, I mean, the sky's your limit, you know.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Well, that's it for us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe to the page, and stay tuned for more content for creatives. Cheers.
Thank you.